What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to NFL Turf Talk here on DSM Media's Turf Talk YouTube channel. Guys, first and foremost, if you are new to the channel, if you like the content, if you want to be interactive throughout the show or any other shows we have here on the channel, make sure to support by smashing that subscribe button. It's the best spot to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up here on the screen with your host. I am one half of them today, Dylan Davis. To my right, my faithful co-host, Scotty. Week 14 is now in our rear view mirror. We're going to be giving you guys all of our major takeaways from the Week 14 slate, as well as talking about our updated NFL power rankings and tonight's Thursday night football matchup with a couple games on Saturday, man, that we're going to get into as well, Scotty. But how are you feeling on this Thursday afternoon, man?
Yeah, man, I can't complain. Just getting through the work day now, get to focus on the stuff I actually like to talk about. So that's the good part of my day. This is the good part, I guess, until I officially get off work. But happy to be here, man. Obviously, a lot of action over the past weekend. A lot of
drama.
Yeah, a lot of drama across sports in general, quite honestly. Everything's starting to look like a fucking reality show.
Soap opera.
But it's entertaining nonetheless. I'll say that. As long as it's not my teams involved, it's entertaining. But nonetheless, we obviously got a lot of action to go through. Top 10 power rankings. That'll be interesting to see how things shake out with all the action that took place this past weekend. And then, as you mentioned, man, we got three playoff implicated matchups on Saturday that are actually really interesting when you look at them. Not interesting. Let me tone it back a little bit.
They're not going to be the greatest products on the field
for what they mean, but not interesting for what is going to be on the field per se. And then tonight is obviously a primetime shit show of backup quarterbacks between Las Vegas and LA. So we'll talk about them. Don't know how much we can give you insight to these backup quarterbacks, but it'll be fun nonetheless, man. But happy to be here. I hope your Thursday's going well, my man.
It's going good, man. It's getting even better now. Like you said, lots to discuss from this past week.
Yes, sir.
A lot of playoff implications and seeding getting mixed around and races getting tighter in divisions. But like you said, for the Saturday slate, it's not. Look, none of these three games probably are going to be the greatest product on the field. It's not going to be, visually pleasing to the naked eye, right? But you do have a wild card team or in the wild card hunt with the Vikings. Obviously switching up quarterbacks, going away from Josh Dobbs, who they brought in a few weeks ago. They're taking on a backup quarterback in Jake Browning, who just got a big win last week.
Yes,
Jake Browning and the Bengals are 7-6, still fighting, in that AFC mix with all those other 7-6 teams. Speaking of AFC 7-6 teams, the Steelers and the Colts play each other. The 7-6 Broncos take on the Lions, who lost last week in the NFC, which has to do with, seeding 1 through 3 right now over in that conference. So, it's going to be fun to at least talk about what those games could mean and some of these backup quarterback situations, even though, we're probably not going to get, the superstars out on the field, the shootouts we want to see on a Saturday afternoon. But nonetheless, at least they mean a little bit to everybody, right? But let's start with the biggest storyline from Week 14, okay? And it has to do with more drama off the field than it does on the field, and that is Kansas City, Buffalo. Now, there's a couple different directions we can go. In terms of seeding, in terms of play, the Buffalo Bills, since making an offensive coordinator switch, have been explosive on offense. And obviously, this is a huge win for them. They're another 7-6 wild card AFC team in the hunt. So Josh Allen looks rejuvenated. It's a big win for them on the road. The Chiefs, on the other hand, 8-5 now. They've lost, 3 straight or 3 of their last 4 games. Obviously, they're, I would like to say, probably safe in their division, even though the 7-6 Broncos are right behind them right now, man. But let's put that on the back burner. Let's put playoff seeding and how big of a win this is for Josh Allen and the Bills on the back burner, because this game was drama-filled. So, unless you live under a rock, obviously, Chiefs down 3, like under a minute and a half to go, throws a seam route to Travis Kelce, and Travis Kelce at some point decides, hey, I'm going to throw about a 20-yard lateral to Kadarius Toney, catches it, runs it in. Chiefs take the lead, but wait, Scotty. There's something yellow on the turf, and the refs threw a flag here. and Kadarius Toney was lined up in the neutral zone. Kadarius Toney was basically lined up parallel with the defensive line. Okay, let's just call it what it is, right? So obviously all the drama, Patrick Mahomes bitching, complaining, honestly embarrassing himself in the Kansas City Chiefs after that one. In Josh Allen's ear when they meet up post-game and just bitching about the refs and the call instead of congratulating Josh Allen. Andy Reid makes a comment about it. And look, we could talk about inconsistency with refs. We could talk about the fact that, hey, Kadarius Toney lined up in the neutral zone earlier in the game and it didn't get called. But in this moment, it gets called. We could talk about all of it. But let me ask you one very simple question. Was he lined up in the neutral zone?
Yes.
End of story. End of story. It's a penalty is a penalty is a penalty. And I know, and we all know as Eagles fans, when you talk about how the Super Bowl ended, when you don't really want to throw a flag, does it affect the play or not? The bottom line is he lined up way off sides, didn't check with the line judge. It's not the first time he did it and first time he didn't check. And the ref threw the flag as soon as the ball was snapped, man. So, yeah, it turned out to be what could have been an historic play, but he didn't throw it late, right? It's not like he threw it as the play's going on. Ball was snapped, flag comes out. The ref had no idea what was about to transpire.
Yeah.
So how about Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City? You look inward.
Yeah.
And yet you hold your wide receivers to some goddamn accountability, considering all of the passes they've dropped this year, all of the penalties, everything. That's just the epitome of what Kansas City's wide receiving room has looked like this year. And it bit them at the wrong time, man. But the bottom line is here, for me, Patrick Mahomes has completely embarrassed himself. Andy Reid embarrassed himself a little bit, and you're off sides, bro.
I think the biggest culprit here is definitely Patrick Mahomes, man. He was definitely showing a side of himself that you just don't.
A very ugly side.
Yeah. And it kind of speaks to how he acts. And you look back at situations like the Super Bowl where he's, pointing to flags and pointing to situations where he thinks a flag should be thrown. And it just speaks to the entitlement that he's operating with, despite his good character that he tends to show at the forefront most of the time. So it is actually funny to see that side of Patrick Mahomes, but it takes me to another point, and it reminds me of someone. It reminds me of Giannis, man. This player that has just become such a great iconic figure in the NBA that the NBA basically allows him to do whatever he wants, complain about whatever he wants, throw tantrums, fits at the end of games when he doesn't get what he wants. And this is what it reminds me of. It reminds me that the NFL enabled this type of behavior, this type of mindset from Patrick Mahomes. So maybe he's not the only culprit. Maybe the culprit is the NFL itself, because they have catered to Patrick Mahomes in situations like that in the past and allowed him to get away with things that he shouldn't have, or called calls that shouldn't have been called. Whatever the case may be, Patrick Mahomes is now operating with this mindset of entitlement. Anytime I need a flag, I'm going to get it. And whenever I need to make a play, I need those flags to be held if we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
I will say also, once again, not to exempt Patrick Mahomes, but it is a major problem with the NFL and the inconsistency amongst the refs and the way they call games. And not even the NFL. It's a problem across all sports, I would say, just the inconsistency. That 1,000% basically comes with being a human being, right? You're going to make errors, but I think the inconsistent part of it is the problem, because
it's the frustrating part, right? That's what builds up.
If you're calling a game physical, you're allowing players to play, then it needs to be like that every week. It can't just be like that this
and
week.
It needs to be it for 60 minutes, right? It's not physical for 55 minutes, and then in the final 5, something changes. No,
but to your point, a flag is a flag.
Correct.
Just because they didn't call it earlier doesn't mean that it's not offside.
It's not the right call.
Got it wrong earlier. It doesn't mean that they got it wrong this time. It means that they got it wrong earlier. I get the point of, like, they're supposed to give them a warning. Well, in a clutch moment in a game like that, you have to throw that flag if he is lined up in the neutral
Not
zone.
To mention, man, he has to check to receive his warning. He didn't even turn his head towards the sideline.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
To your point, the inconsistency is what builds up in everybody, right? And like,
but Mahomes is always on the great side of things, so
correct.
There's no reason
where
for
you
that
have no sympathy for the Chiefs fans.
Yeah, no, there's no reason for that frustration to be there.
Correct. Because let's be honest, man. What would you rather have flipped out about? What was the more egregious call / no call? This past weekend when your guy actually was lined up in the neutral zone and it's a correct call? Or 2 Sundays ago when MVS was tackled at the 4-yard line with a minute left, should have been pass interference to set you up inside the 5. They don't throw the flag. There wasn't a word said about that by Patrick Mahomes or the Chiefs. Yeah. And you sit here and you talk about enabling him, right? And even in that same game and how he gets the calls, before that no pass interference call, Patrick Mahomes got an unnecessary roughness call when he was still in bounds.
Yeah,
he gets all the calls. They get all the calls. The Super Bowl ended because they got a favorable bullshit call. And the last thing I'll say is, look, it's 4 days, so we don't know. Obviously, a fine can come down. But you want to talk about enabling? Where's Patrick Mahomes' fine for speaking about the referees the way that he has publicly after this one?
Yeah, seriously.
Because to your point about Giannis and the leash that some of these guys have with foul calls and non-fouls and how they're able to be demonstrative and whatever, if Patrick Mahomes is not fined for what he said to the media and to everything, you want to talk about enabling? Because anybody else would be fined. Guys get fined for a lot less, saying a lot less about officiating and the rules and everything. So it's only been 4 days. I'm expecting something to come down, but no, I feel like normally, dude, this shit rains down pretty quickly. Like if a guy has an unnecessary roughness call or a roughing the passer call, I feel like by Tuesday, if they're fining him for it, he's fine.
What are they reviewing?
Right. Like you have everything you need.
If he's getting fined, he should be fined by now. So I would imagine that he's not going to get fined.
If he's not, dude, and listen, I'm not trying to sit here and call to take money out of anybody's pockets, but come on. You want to talk about enabling a star and allowing someone to get away with shit that other people don't get away with in the same workplace.
Yeah.
You have to do something about that.
Exhibit A right there. Right. But I will say, this kind of leads me into my other takeaway. One of my other takeaways for this week as well, because that was one of my takeaways. Patrick Mahomes got to be the biggest motherfucking baby in the NFL, man. And it's just sad. The reason, obviously,
his mommy thinks the refs are against her son.
The Giannis situation is in my head right now, and that is exactly what that looked like to me. You have Giannis going up to Tyrese Halliburton saying, go get my
ball. You need to go get the ball.
And it's why is Patrick Mahomes going up to Josh Allen and saying, can you believe that call?
Correct. And some people were trying to say.
What Josh Allen to say?
And some people were talking about the fact that they're friends off the field and, whatever.
So weird.
Do you know how awkward that had to be for Josh Allen in that moment? Absolutely.
Yeah, Absolutely. It's offensive. First of all, it's ignorant because I won the game. You're saying I won the game because of a call. No, we won the game. And it's it's just weird. Did you? What did he think? Josh Allen was
the last thing.
That was a horrible call. You guys should have won.
Absolutely. The last thing I'll say about his tantrum is hindsight's 20/20. And if this was an incomplete pass or God forbid Travis Kelce's lateral got deflected and fumbled and it was picked up,
it wouldn't even be a combo.
Hell no. He would want that penalty accepted. It's just the fact that Travis Kelce made this ridiculous play and it would have put them in the lead with a minute or so left and blah, blah, blah. Like I said, man, it's not in the NBA, speaking, your Giannis reference, it's not like when a referee doesn't blow a whistle
until after the
on contact, layup goes up, and they kind of wait to see if it goes in or not. And when it falls off the rim, they blow the whistle extremely late. The ref threw the flag as soon as he possibly could once the ball was snapped.
Yeah.
There was no delay in it. Come on. Like, let's just calm down. All right.
It's funny, man. You know what the equivalent is to that, that NBA refs do about, like and ones, or maybe it should be an and one and it goes in and they just hold the whistle, right? They don't call the foul, or vice versa. It rolls out and they call the foul. Then it's kind of like when there's pass interference and it's like, if the offensive player catches it, fuck it. If he drops it, we're throwing that flag.
Exactly.
Yeah, but this wasn't one of those situations. No. So to your point, Mahomes is ridiculous.
I mean, and you want to complain and bitch and moan about this one particular call. How about, again, holding your own team accountable and holding Kadarius Toney accountable for that ridiculous, dumb-ass play? But also, like, your team scored 17. Your defense held the Bills to 20. How about your interception, Patrick? Are you mad at that? How about your interception against the Packers when you got your ass handed to you by Jordan Love 2 weeks ago? How about when you got shut out in the second half against the Eagles on Monday Night Football at home? How about your embarrassing loss to the Denver Broncos? I mean, at some point, dude, you got to look inward.
Well, that's the thing. It kind of feels like he's unraveling a little bit, man, because there was, the last game before that against the Packers, he's on the sideline screaming at Kadarius Toney. So, like looking inward, he's doing it all, man. He's having some high complexion this season, something that he just hasn't had to deal with.
I love Travis Kelce. I love the New Heights podcast. I love Jason. I love everything about it. Obviously, Travis, and they're just, you're not going to throw your teammate under the bus. He's being a good leader, being a good teammate. But when they talked about the penalty on their New Heights podcast this past week, I saw a clip of him talking about KT, Kadarius Toney, and how, everyone needs to back off of KT. There's no one else he'd rather go to war with. And in my head, I'm like, that's just all bullshit. That's just, seriously, how many mistakes, how many drops, how many fumbles, how many stupid plays does a dude have to make? I get sticking up for your teammate, but to say there's no one I'd rather go to war with than KT.
It's like Quez, man. You don't think the boys and the birds want to go to war with Quez, man? Yeah. Come on.
It'd be like Jason Kelce, be like Boston Scott fumbling to end the game, and Jason Kelce being like, "There's no one I'd rather go to war with than Boston Scott." Like, what?
That's a good thought, man. Let me ask you this: where would Quez Watkins be in their wide receiver room? What wide receiver would he be?
At least number 2. Like, if not, fighting for one, at least 2.
He has an opportunity to be wide receiver 1 for them, and that's
Olamide Zaccheaus might be wide receiver 1 for them.
No lie, man. No lie. But nonetheless, this Chiefs loss brought me to my next takeaway, man, which is that the AFC right now, given the Ravens, they are at 10 wins right now, fair enough. But that conference is a complete toss-up right now. I mean, you had the Steelers lose to the Patriots on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah.
You had the Colts lose to the Bengals with Jake Browning.
Yeah.
And the Bengals put up 34 points with their backup quarterback, by the way. The Jags lose to the Browns with Trevor Lawrence.
And Joe Flacco playing.
And Joe Flacco out there slinging the thing. Ravens have a close call. With the LA Rams, 37-31. The Bills obviously beat the Chiefs, and then the Titans, man. The Titans knocked down the Dolphins.
Don't forget Miami. Zach Wilson beating the Texans.
Beating the Texans, knocking CJ Stroud out. The Texans are running into a ton of injuries too, man. They lost Tank Dell, and then Nico Collins went out of this last game as well. But they nonetheless knocked the Texans down, the Jets, that is. And the AFC right now, wide the hell open, man. Wide the hell open. And once again, it leads into this week full of these like playoff dependent
big matchups. Yeah.
How many backup quarterbacks are we going to have in the playoffs in the AFC, man?
Someone posted the picture of like when the year the Eagles won the Super Bowl, and it was Brady, Gabbert. Or no, was it Gabbert playing for
Boyle or Bortles? Blake Bortles.
Yeah, Blake Bortles, excuse me. Foles and Case Keenum, and it was like the back of their jerseys, and it was like, man, it feels like we're just destined for another one of these championship weekends.
It really does, man. Because you look Kansas City, Miami, Baltimore all have their quarterbacks. Jacksonville, they had a little bit of a scare, but Trevor Lawrence played last week.
Tua is there.
Tua's there. Yeah, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, Cincinnati are all playing with backup quarterbacks. Now, Pittsburgh, we'll see how long Kenny Pickett's out. And then the Texans, I mean, C.J. Stroud did have a concussion, so if he plays this week or not, we'll see. But nonetheless, it is incredibly interesting, which then on the tail end leads to my other takeaway from this week is that nobody in the AFC wants to play the Buffalo Bills. Like, you do not want the Buffalo Bills in the wild card round. And it's crazy that they've turned into this team just by one win and a really good performance against the Eagles.
Yeah.
Right. But when you look at how Josh Allen is playing since Ken Dorsey was fired, that's where a little bit of that fear or bullishness towards them would come, man. You look at him in his last 3 games against the Jets, he was 20 for 32, 275 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. Against the Eagles, 29 for 51, 339 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 81 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. And then this past weekend against Kansas City, 233 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 32 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. So he's putting up the numbers. He's filling the box sheet. I will say leads the NFL in interceptions still. He's thrown an interception in each one of those games. But the offense looks more like it is supposed to, like it was supposed to coming into this season. And I think that's the scary part. But they're right there. They're only 2 games back of the Dolphins, and they play them in the last game of the season. So they could very well come back and potentially win this division if Miami drops next week against the Cowboys or something. So
Josh Allen's game awareness is what's the game changer for Buffalo. And when you talk about interceptions and turnovers, and you know that I get on him more so than anybody else when it comes to those. But what do we always throw in there? It's not just the totals. The totals are bullshit to me.
Yeah.
It's the timing in which and the territory in which these interceptions and fumbles were occurring throughout their losses. And it's like, man, that's something you can look on as for a reason for the loss, not the interception on the second drive of the game when you're up 7-0, whatever. It's not that, right?
Yeah.
So like you go back the year LA won the Super Bowl, Stafford led the league in interceptions.
Yeah.
The one year Burrow and Mahomes were both top 2 when they played in top 3 in interceptions. They played in the AFC Championship game against each other. Like there's so many examples of it not meaning too much when guys, lead the league in interceptions or atop them, but it's how and when those turnovers occur. And a perfect example is that Eagles game. He was lights out that Eagles game.
Yeah.
But the Eagles score a touchdown, they break into the lead a little bit, and then you throw a pick on your own side of the field, sets them up, touchdown, Eagles take the lead. That's the timing of which I'm talking about these turnovers. Now, his turnover against Kansas City, I can't quite recall when it happened, but I don't think it was to really put them in harm's way. I could be off, but I don't think it was to put them in a tough situation at the end of the game or anything. So, that's what I mean with Josh Allen. They 1,000%, Scotty, are a team that no one wants to play because right now they're looking at a 6 or a 7 seed. So could you imagine being the 2 seed in the AFC and you have to have that dude and that team come to town for the first game of the first season? That's annoying. But it's not just how they're looking. It's all the red flags you're seeing within the other AFC contenders.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And it makes them closer to championship aspirations than they probably would be if Mahomes and the Chiefs were still lights out, or if Burrow never got injured and the Bengals were 9-4 or 8-5 or whatever, right? The fact that there's injuries, the Chiefs don't look the same, the Dolphins are soft, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It puts the Bills right back in that conversation.
Yeah, exactly. You look across the board right now. They just beat the Chiefs. They beat the Dolphins earlier this season, right? And then who else is left at the top of that, at the top of the AFC that's unscathed? Like the Jags just lost to Joe Flacco.
Right now, the Ravens look like the best team in the league or in the AFC.
And would you put your money on the Ravens to beat the Bills?
No.
That's where it gets really crazy.
No, Mark Andrews. I still don't trust Lamar in the postseason until proven otherwise.
We got to see it.
A lack of total talent in the wide receiver room. I mean, that defense is legit. And if they can run the ball, that mixes well for a playoff run for Baltimore. But when you watch Baltimore lose at home to Gardner Minshew and the Colts, get taken to overtime by Stafford and the Rams in Baltimore, they lost to who a couple weeks ago? Was it Cleveland that they lost to with a backup quarterback a couple weeks ago? Or was it when they lost to Pittsburgh? I forget. But they have there's one more loss recently to a division rival that's like, man, it's not a great loss for the Ravens there. Let me see. I want to say it was the Browns.
They lost to the Steelers, and they did lose to the Browns.
Okay, there it is. Steelers, Colts, Browns,
and then that was the game Deshaun Watson got injured for the season.
Right.
And then they lost to the Steelers. Trying to see if that was
lost to Steelers kind of in the midway part of the season.
Yeah, and then they lost to the Colts earlier on in this season as well. So, not the greatest loss. It shows what their basements can look like, and then you go to overtime with the Rams, who are playing better, but still a team below 500, right? So,
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Before we move on.
Yeah.
It makes me think with this, right?
Yeah.
And how we're incredibly tough on them. But we're sitting here looking at the AFC and talking about the Ravens' tough struggles in their 3 losses, the Bills at 7-6, in which the Eagles have beaten, and how they're back in contention and this and that. And it's like, but on the other side, we're sitting here questioning if the Eagles can still compete for a Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like, it really does make you sit back and like have to just go, relax.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, please relax, because man, if the Buffalo Bills are back in contention, the Eagles never fucking left contention. Okay,
exactly.
That's the thing.
Yeah. All it takes is for the Eagles at the end of the day, and that goes for.
I just had to throw that little Eagles option in the middle.
You just got to get hot at the right time of the season, man. That's what it's all about.
So, absolutely, but
I agree.
One of my takeaways, man, we talked about the AFC South not really being able to take advantage. You mentioned it, right? Like if the Jags lose to Joe Flacco, the Colts lose to Jake Browning, and the Texans lose to Zach Wilson. If one of those teams, right, if the Jags win while the other two lose, they create more separation. Yeah. If one or the other two sitting at 7-6 right now win that game, they're tied right now with the Jags. No one could take advantage. Same with the NFC South, man.
Yep.
That division, I mean, first of all, that is a first-round exit, more than likely, for any 3 of those teams that come away. But 3 6-7 teams in the Saints, Bucks, and Falcons over in the NFC South, man. Who do you give the advantage to right now? The Bucks go on the road and beat Desmond Ridder, even though Desmond Ridder throws for like 350 and Drake London has himself a day. And, the Bucks find a way to win that game. The Saints, obviously blow out Bryce Young at home, so you can't really talk too much about them. But 3 6-7 teams, what can you really make of those 3 in that division?
Yeah, man, I think when I look at those 3 teams in that division, as you mentioned, no matter who makes it, I think, New Orleans would probably have the best home field crowd. You got 2 domes and an outdoor team in the Bucks, so nothing really there. The Bucks are in the South, warm weather, not really any type of home field advantage there.
No.
But when I look at the teams just against each other, right, I would have to go with the Bucks, man. I think that's where I would have to go, just because, probably before this season, I would have taken Derek Carr over Baker Mayfield.
It should be the Saints and Derek Carr.
It changed,
but it hasn't been.
Changed for me. I would take Baker Mayfield over Derek Carr right now with the weapons that the Bucks have. Obviously, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin out there. Cade Otton has come into his own. Rashad White has come into his own. He's been playing really well for them at running back. And they have the pedigree, right? They did win a championship with Tom Brady. They do have some coaching layover from the
they
time
had
with
defensive players laid over from that
yeah,
time.
exactly. So they have the tools in house to put things together towards the late part of this season. I would have to look at each of their schedules to really know who has the best chance.
Yeah, I haven't. I'll be honest. I haven't cared too much about the NFC South.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a huge deal. The Bucs, I will say, play the Packers, the Jags, the Saints, and the Panthers. So they control their own destiny.
So that I'll tell you what. I'll look at the other two, right? So that's not incredibly easy when it comes to the Bucs. The Falcons have at Carolina, home versus the Colts, at Chicago, at New Orleans. A mix there. And the Saints have at Rams, tough, at Bucks, home versus Giants, excuse me, at Rams, at Bucks versus Falcons to end the year.
So Saints really control their own destiny. And the crazy part here is that one of these teams could make the playoffs as a wild card too, man.
I know.
They're competing head to head. Like the Bucks play the Packers. Those are two teams playing to get in. And then of course the Saints play the Falcons, and I think the Bucks play either the Falcons or the Saints down the last part of the season as well. So regardless, I mean, Minnesota, Tampa Bay, Green Bay, LA Rams, Seattle, Atlanta, New Orleans,
all 6 and 7.
I would pick all of those teams to lose in the first round, but the weird part, they're going to play each other somehow. So, yeah, it is wild over in the NFC, man. Yeah. I will say that. Out of those teams, it's probably between the Rams and the Seahawks who would be the most dangerous getting in, right?
To win a game,
yeah.
I'll tell you what. If the Rams or the Seahawks are the 5 seed somehow, well, no, they can't even be the 5 seed because the loser of the NFC East is going to be there.
Yeah.
But what I was trying to say was, if the Rams or Seahawks played the winner of the NFC South division, the Rams or Seahawks would be favored on the road in that matchup.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree.
The Vikings, I don't believe in. You know, the Jeremy Lin story.
The fact that they're going to Nick Mullins now, man. The fact that they're actually benching Josh is actually insane. But they're still somehow above 500 and the 6th seed right now.
And then, like, you got the Packers, who you think for a slight second, Jordan Love's starting to figure it out, and here they're winning some games. They beat the Chiefs. They lose to fucking Tommy Cutlets.
They lose to the Giants.
I mean, that's another story we haven't even discussed at all on this show.
Out of the conversation.
Yeah,
that is a great way to see.
What do you think? That's another thing I had written down for today's show. What do you think about the passing Paisan, man? What do you think about him?
Tommy DeVito?
Oh yeah.
Oh, come on. The fact that he won, he got like NFC Player of the Week. Are you fucking kidding me? He had like 170 passing yards or some shit. Miss me with that. We're going to see what
I don't want to say too much because I don't want to get my kneecaps broken when I walk outside to get the mail one day.
Not in this city, man. This city is a dangerous one to talk down on Mr. DeVito.
And that agent, man. That agent. What the fuck, man? Seriously, what is happening in New York?
Man, all I'll say is I know this motherfucker better not get close to beating the Eagles when we play them, man. That's one thing.
Can I tell you a little secret? As much as I just ripped the Eagles on yesterday morning show,
that ain't happening.
Tommy Chicken Parm doesn't have a shot in effing hell.
Oh my goodness!
At beating the Eagles here on Christmas Day. Or in New York, not a chance.
Look, Dylan, the Giants have a chance to make the playoffs, okay? So they're fighting for something. Mr. DeVito is trying to lead them to the promised land.
It's true, dude.
It's crazy. They're 5-8. They are legitimately like in the conversation, at least, right?
It's disgusting. It's disgusting. It really is.
Now, mind you, if the Eagles take care of business, that should knock them out of contention. But as of right now, 5-8, right behind those 6 and 7 teams. It's ridiculous.
How about I know we're going back and forth here about conferences, but just go down my list of takeaways. Miami, man. I mean, you want to talk about a team you just can't get a fucking read on. The same thing with the Jags. We lumped them together. You talked about the Jags losing to the Browns. And their quarterback situation this past week, right? not being able to take advantage. You look at, and there's another team that, in Detroit that we're going to talk about too, but I look at this Miami team and it's like, man, how soft are they? And I get it. Tyreek got injured early in the game. They had a couple guys go down on defense, whatever. The bottom line, man, you're up 14 with 4.5 minutes left at home against the 4-8 Titans. The Titans just fumbled on back-to-back drives to set you up on the inside their 15. You score twice off of those turnovers. Game should be over. You let Will Levis go down the field in 28 seconds. 4 plays, 28 seconds for a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. And then, we talk about having some cojones as a head coach and a play caller, right? So like Dan Campbell, big balls sometimes, right? Nick Sirianni at times, big Doug Peterson. Mike McDaniels showed the absolute smallest peanuts you could ever imagine in this game. Up 6, 3 minutes left or something, Scotty. And he comes out knowing Tennessee's using their timeouts. They have all 3 in the 2-minute warning left. He goes run, then tries to pass on 3rd and 8. Tua runs, gets sacked, tackled, whatever. The Dolphins had the ball for maybe 20 seconds, dude.
Yeah,
that's an inexcusable drive by a team that's trying to fight for the AFC lead.
It went from 2 minutes and 40 seconds to 2 minutes and 15.
That's fucking embarrassing. Let's call it what it is. Embarrassing. It's bad coaching. It's bad play calling. It's bad execution. It's just bad all around. Knowing what they're doing. I get it. Like, you don't want to go a 3-and-out, incompletions, and let them keep their timeouts. I understand that. But, Scotty, man, it ain't like there was a minute and a half left and they had 3 timeouts.
Man, and I'm like wondering who have these Dolphins played, man? Like, who have they beaten? Like, this was my thing with the Dolphins a couple weeks back.
I know.
And I look at it now and it's even worse. And so then I get to this point, man, where I'm looking at the AFC as a whole. Out of the teams in contention for the playoffs that I could put my money on the Dolphins beating, I think the only one that I might pick, there might be 2 here, 2 or 3. Probably Jacksonville, probably. Because Jacksonville isn't the most physical team. And then I would go all the way down. I'll throw the Steelers in there because of their quarterback situation is so horrible.
Yeah.
The Colts, another team that just not good enough, I would say, against the Dolphins.
Absolutely.
And maybe the Texans.
Can I tell you something? I just looked at the Dolphins' remaining schedule.
Yeah.
With losing that game and blowing that late lead against the Titans.
Lose the division. Is that what you're going to tell me?
They might lose the division. Now, I have not gone and checked the Bills because I know the Bills play the Cowboys still, and I haven't checked the rest of theirs.
Yeah.
The Miami Dolphins have a 2-game lead on the Buffalo Bills at the moment. They play the Jets with that defense, Cowboys at Baltimore, Buffalo to end the year. So if there's a 1-game switch between now and week 18 and Buffalo's only down by 1 game, already beat Miami earlier on in the season, and Buffalo wins that game.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if does it go head to head first? Is it division record first?
It speaks to how important this weekend's game is for Buffalo, because if they can beat the Cowboys, they play the Chargers, no Justin Herbert, and then they play the Patriots. And then the Dolphins to finish the season.
And mind you, they already lost to New England once. They're not getting swept by New England and the dumpster fire that they are.
No, not at all. They're beating the Chargers and the Patriots for my money. And I think they honestly have a great shot against the Cowboys. I do. I think the Cowboys are just so hot right now. They're due for a loss. Like,
well, that's how I feel
out.
Miami
That would be a
too.
Crazy stretch. They've won 5
It is weird. Like, Miami's at home versus Dallas. Is not in Dallas.
Yeah.
Miami, assuming Tyreek's healthy.
Buffalo's at home against Dallas as well. So Dallas gets 2 in a row.
There you go. See, that's what I mean about the Eagles are winning the NFC East. Like they're winning the NFC East with the schedule Dallas has and everything. Like, come on. But two more things before, at least one or two more things before we get into power.
Cowboys got the Lions there too. The Lions is a team that can't really afford. Not that Dallas.
Glad you brought them up because they're next on my Week 14 takeaways. Dude, I'm sorry.
They're frauds.
You want to talk about us? I know their head coach brings toughness and they're tough. They're right. No, they're not. They're as soft as baby shit. They are so goddamn soft. And you know why? Yeah. As great of a statistical year as he put up last year and at times this year, Jared Goff is a soft quarterback.
Yeah.
When the pressure comes like it did with Chicago, like the pressure came on Thanksgiving Day against the Packers, and I mean legitimate like defensive pressure, not eyes on you watching the game. Pressure. Yeah. He folds, bro. Yeah. Turns the ball over a shit ton, makes stupid mistakes. I mean, you went into Chicago and scored 13 points.
Yeah.
13 points.
And
in one quarter. You didn't score in 3 of the 4 quarters.
And against the Chicago Bears. Gives up 28. Like, let's not pretend that Chicago is like this driving force offensively. Like, they got 4 touchdowns on this team. So,
if you want to go back a week ago and pull the tape from you and I talking about this team being put on upset watch come Wild Card Weekend, dude, last week against Chicago only solidified that for me even more. Now, again, It's going to depend on wild cards and who comes out of there, and they could, end up with, I don't know who they could end. They could end up with the Falcons somehow coming to Detroit, and they'll beat the Falcons. But what I'm telling you is that the Detroit Lions have to play the Seahawks or the Rams, hell, the Green Bay Packers. They're going to be put on upset alert in Wild Card Weekend.
I could honestly see the Lions finishing out 10 well, let me see here. So they're at 9-4 right now. 2 more losses, 2 more wins. So 11-6 is where I would see the Lions finishing. I think they could very well lose to the Broncos this upcoming week.
Absolutely.
I do think that is
on
possible.
Saturday.
I would take the Lions in that game just because they need it, but they could lose that game for sure. They play the Vikings. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They can beat the Vikings, even though that is a division rival. The Vikings are staying afloat somehow. Then they play the Cowboys. I think that's a loss in Dallas. Like we said, they're not a physical team. They're pretty soft. So I see them finishing about 11-6. They should still get the 3 seed.
Yeah, they will. They're not falling anywhere beyond that, obviously.
If they
with what the NFC South is doing.
So they would play 2, would play 7, 3 would play 6. So they would play Minnesota right now. So, yeah, they should beat Minnesota at home. I mean, they should, right? Nick Mullins or Josh Dobbs, whoever it would be. But, yeah, they are definitely – let's be honest. I mean, anybody outside of, like, Dallas, San Fran, and Philly are on upset alert. Weirdly enough, if you call it upsets at that point, I would say it's just a toss-up at that point.
Right. No, absolutely.
Yeah, but, I mean, if the Lions end up playing like a New Orleans, I could – did they beat New Orleans? I'm curious now.
I forget, man. I think
they did. They beat them 33-28, so only by 5 points, 1 score. So
yeah, and they blew a big lead. I remember that about 2 or 3 weeks ago. But last team I got to talk about blowing standings and everything like that. The Pittsburgh Steelers. What did we talk about when they fired Matt Canada? What did we talk about?
We're going to find out if it's the quarterback or the coordinator?
Sure is. Sure are. And the first week without Matt Canada, they won the game. They beat Jake Browning and the Bengals, and they put up over 400 yards of total offense. At the end of the day, I believe they scored 17 points? 16 points, over 400 yards total offense. Still couldn't convert. The Steelers came in 2 weeks ago with a 7-4 record, right? Not out of the question that they could compete with Baltimore at that point for the division. They had the Arizona Cardinals come to town in Pittsburgh, and the 2-win Bailey Zappi-led New England Patriots on Thursday night primetime television come to town in Pittsburgh, and they lost both. Now, granted, Kenny Pickett got injured versus Arizona, so Mitch Trubisky started. So, again, it's like, all right, it's not like Kenny lost both games. The bottom line, what Kenny was doing against Arizona wasn't cutting it. I mean, okay, let's just call a spade there. Let's go back. You put up 10 points in this matchup against the Arizona Cardinals. Okay? 10 points. You lost that one. And then, I mean, you only lost by 3, but the New England Patriots led for all of that game. All of it. So you got beat up for 60 minutes against the New England Patriots with Bailey Zappi leading the way. Put a fork in them, bro. Like put a fork in this team. Cook them. They're done. They have no chance of doing anything. Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, what the hell? Mason Rudolph. It doesn't matter who you throw out there. I have loved all of the memes and jokes about Mitch Trubisky on Twitter this past week. I don't know if you've seen any of them.
No,
but it's because it happens so many times on Thursday night. Be like 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 1. And be like from a movie clip or a funny clip, would be like, you want to see how far I can throw this ball and just launch it. It's just Mitch Trubisky on 3rd and short. And it's just like, dude, literally, I watched about 3 like 3rd and 2s, 3rd and 3s, and he just throws like a 40-yard sideline go route and misses every time. And it's like, what are we doing? So the Steelers are a mess. Defensively, they're great. Defensively, we know about TJ Watt and everything.
I think after a while, though, even with a great defense, it starts to catch up to you when your offense just can't perform, man.
Yeah. Not when you're a net negative, man, on offense, right? It'd be one thing if your defense was dominant and your offense maybe only averaged 20 to 22, 22 points per game. And they weren't great, but, they get the job. This offense just doesn't even come close to getting the job done, Scott. 10 points against the Arizona fucking Cardinals? 10.
Gannon defense, man.
Eagles fans crying that they miss Jonathan Gannon now. Good Lord. Good fucking Lord.
Yeah, bring back Frank Reich. He's gotten fired from his last 2 jobs where he was play caller. But yes, he'll fix the offense.
Jesus fuck.
Hilarious.
Anywho, let's get into our updated top 10 NFL power rankings. I'll pull the bottom of the screen away here in a second to get you guys the rest of the list. Looking here, obviously I have not seen yours before this. San Fran coming in at number 1, followed by the Cowboys. Eagles and Ravens swapped on our list. Dolphins and Cowboys swapped on our list. Lions, you have 1 spot ahead of me. Now let's remove this little ding-a-ling. Yeah, all the same teams. No surprise there. Obviously there were a couple teams towards the bottom. When you talk about all those 7-6 teams out in the AFC, where you could put them. But for my money, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think these are the 10 best teams at the moment. I think it is fair to say that San Fran is above and beyond the best team in the league right now, today. That's what these power rankings are, right? They change week to week. Today, they're the best team in the league. Beat the shit out of us in Philly. Beat the shit out of the Cowboys earlier in the year. But all 3 are 10-3. You put them number 1, fair game. Dallas just kicked the shit out of us. They're starting to play good teams, right? Like that was the question mark with the Cowboys. Can they beat winning teams? They've done so the last 2 weeks. And now I know Seattle has slid down, but nonetheless, they were above 500 at that point. Eagles, Ravens, man, I can't disagree with you. Like, I want to put the Eagles 3. I guess from like just watching the way we folded the last 2 weeks, and even though the Ravens didn't have an impressive win over the Rams, they won. We got our teeth kicked in. I'll flop them there. Chiefs, Dolphins, same thing, right? Like, it just, if I had to pick head to head, I still might take the Chiefs. Both teams coming off losses. You never know. Let me ask you, the Jags. Why so low on the Jags there?
I don't know, man. I don't like them, honestly. I just look at them every opportunity they have a chance to, like, prove themselves and, like, validate themselves. They just fail. And, like, they lost Christian Kirk for the season. I think that's going to hurt them way more than, like, what we even understand, just given the type of receiver he is. Like, he's that niche possession type, slot type receiver, that go-to guy for Trevor Lawrence. And I don't know, man. Losing him on top of losing to the Browns, right? Losing to Joe Flacco. Like, if Joe Flacco can come out and beat you on Sundays, then what the hell are you going to do in the playoffs when you run into, if they somehow played against the fucking Bills in the first round of the playoffs? Like, that's a loss. Like, so when I look at that team, I look at like them, the Lions and the Dolphins in like the same bucket of just soft.
Yep.
And I think that out of those three teams, I think the Jags are the softest to me. And I think that they just, even with the talent that they have, Calvin Ridley, they just have not blown me away with what they should be compared to their record, compared to where they were.
Surprisingly enough, they did find a way to beat those Buffalo Bills in London earlier on in the season.
Interesting enough. Yeah, but we'll throw that one to jet lag.
Yeah.
The Jags are used to playing over there, man.
Yeah, that's true.
I think they actually were over there 2 weeks in a row, right? For 2 games in a row, they played over there. So
the Lions, man,
over like in between, but
the Lions obviously staying at 7 for you, dropped 1 slot for me. But I feel like 2 weeks ago, they were in our top 4. So big drop off for the Lions simply because of this horrific loss to the Bears. Like style point,
it's kind of where they've been trending, right? I feel like
I know it's kind of hypocritical. Style points don't necessarily matter when you win and how you win. It's just the fact that you got the job done.
Yeah.
But it definitely plays a factor in losses.
Yeah.
And when you lose to certain teams in certain fashions, it hurts your credibility. So when you lose 28-13 against the fucking Chicago Bears, it hurts your credibility.
Yeah. And I think, just the fact, like, sure, you had the win against the Saints in between, but you just lost to the Packers too at home on Thanksgiving by a touchdown. So it's like, the Lions, man, they've kind of been gradually dropping. They've been trending. And like, they had 2 losses at the time, and I think we could put them in the top 4 at that time, maybe with a little asterisk of like what we know that they were, like what we thought they really were at the time. And I believe even at that time, we identified that they were different from the teams above them. And the Cowboys have kind of came in and taken their place in a sense.
Yeah.
So the Lions, once again, in that bucket of just soft. Don't expect much if they run into a real football team.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at with them. Like, for example, man, the Browns. Like, that's the crazy thing about this Cleveland Browns team, right? You could argue that the Browns could potentially beat. I honestly, I'm inclined to say any of these teams, but I will just say, at least the Ravens down. Like,
I agree.
Yeah, man. I mean, they've beaten the 49ers. Like, they have. They beat the 49ers with PJ Walker. So, like,
and they beat the Ravens.
Yeah, they beat the Ravens. Like, they've beaten the Jags. They've, like they've beaten teams, and they're in one of the toughest divisions in the AFC North. It feels like those are the only teams.
And look at their injuries, bro. They haven't had Nick Chubb since week what?
Yeah, Nick Chubb is like this forgotten soldier, man. That has. I literally forgot about it.
And you look at all of their, quarterback issues, Deshaun going down, and now you pulled Joe Flacco, off of his couch to come back and play, and he's leading you to 30+ points and wins late in the season. So
that being
it's definitely hats off to the Browns and how they're gotten the Browns.
The Browns can also lose to any one of these teams as well. That's important to notate. But the physicality, that they present in a game against, say, like the Miami Dolphins. Now, a game in Miami, maybe the Dolphins could get ahead of them there with Tua and everybody healthy. But I don't know, man. I like their matchup. Like, if I had to pick like one underdog that I could potentially take against each of these teams, it would be the Browns. But that being said, they would need to be the underdog in that case.
I agree. So. I agree with you wholeheartedly, man. The last team I'll say, the Kansas City Chiefs are lucky that the teams below them come with their own issues and question marks. And, the Chiefs have beaten the Dolphins and the Jags, so they're lucky there. They did just lose to the Bills, but the Kansas City Chiefs have lost 3 straight and 4 of their last 5 games, if I'm correct.
Let me see here.
They've lost to the Eagles, the Broncos.
They beat the Raiders.
Right.
So they've lost 3 out of the last 4.
Okay.
Or no, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And they've lost 1, 2, 3, 4 out of their last 6. Okay. So Broncos, Eagles, Bills, and Packers.
Yeah. Any other team that doesn't have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid might not even be on the top 10 right now.
It is like you said, though. It's a perfect storm of literally the Lions lost, the Dolphins lost, and the Jags lost. The Jags lost. So, and at the end of the day, are you putting Joe Flacco above Patrick Mahomes?
And the thing with, yes, Buffalo just beat them head-to-head.
Yeah, that would be giving Buffalo too much credit. Right.
Buffalo 7-6. I know it's only a 1-game difference, but Buffalo hasn't been on our list in weeks.
Yeah.
So to put them, top 5 now would be a little too much of a stretch for me. That's why they come in at 9. But those are our updated top 10 power rankings heading into week 15, man. The last thing we have set for you guys on this week's show, we do have a Thursday night game and then a couple Saturday games here on in week 16. Tonight, I could give 2 shits about to go over with you. Aiden O'Connell versus who's starting for the Chargers tonight?
Easton Stick.
Okay, sure. Sure. Can I tell you something?
Cool name.
Won't be watching this game. I'm going to take the Ravens to win. That's the Raiders, excuse me. I'll take the Raiders to win.
Yeah, I'm honestly with you on that, man. The reasoning behind this, though, it's very simple. The Chargers can't win with Justin Herbert. So they're not going to win without him.
They damn sure can't win without him. Brandon Staley evidently thinks Austin Eckler is an issue in this. They're going to give more carries to Joshua Kelly moving forward.
Take a look in the mirror and you'll find the issue.
Yeah. So a lot of stuff going on there. I'll take Aiden O'Connell and the Raiders tonight. But 3 Saturday games, all 3 have major seeding and playoff implications, man. Division, wild card, everything. 1 o'clock, you have the Vikings at Cincinnati, Scotty. Vikings going with yet another quarterback change. No more Josh Dobbs under center for them. And Jake Browning, man, kind of coming into his own over the last 2 weeks. Weird. Obviously lost to the Steelers 2 weeks ago, but had himself at least kept them in the game and made some plays, looking like he actually belongs. And then last week, scoring 30 plus. Scotty, I'm going to take the Bengals in this one, man. I'm going to take the home defense. I'm going to take the weapons outside. I know Justin Jefferson has returned and they're upping his role, but I'm going to take the more proven backup quarterback, right, in this season. I'm going to take the better all-around skill position players, and I'm going to take the home defense in this one. I'll go with the Bengals.
Yeah, man, it's actually crazy. And, Jake Browning, what a name, dude. It's just so generic, I swear. But it honestly, got to give him some credit, man. You have back-to-back wins now against, playoff opponents, right, in the Jags, and then you had the win against the Colts, right, who are also in the race for the playoffs. Dropped 34 points in both of those games with Jake Browning after the loss to the Steelers. Jake Browning in the game against the Jags, man, 32 of 37, 354 passing yards, 1 touchdown. He had 2 rushes for 22 yards and a rushing touchdown as well. Dropped 34 on the Jags, first of all, and then comes back home, plays the Indianapolis Colts, and he goes 18 for 24, 275 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. In another rushing touchdown with 7 rushing yards. So, touchdown machine, passing yards. And they do have the better weapons around him, right? You look at Minnesota; they have better weapons than Minnesota around him. So, I'm
Hockenson and Jettas are a nice 1-2 punch.
It's close. Right? It's close, but the Bengals we have talked about for years.
Higgins,
now.
Boyd, Mixon. Just more.
Even Chase Brown, the backup running back, has came too. He looks pretty good. So
Browning can throw it a little bit, man, and it's just funny. Man. It just makes you, like we talked about with the Jets and their issues on the backup quarterback spot. It's like I've
never heard of this guy before this moment.
And he just do something, man. But anywho, this game actually might be a snoozer. Steelers at Colts. Steelers offense
means a lot,
proven not to do anything no matter who's under center or calling the plays. The Colts at home, Gardner Minshew. It's been a fun ride. It's been a fun story for them, but I can't see them doing much against this defense. Now, The Steelers defense at home versus on the road, maybe a little different, right? We saw them lose to CJ Stroud and the Texans pretty badly earlier on in the year when that defense was on the road. But I don't think Gardner Minshew is going to have a lot of success this weekend against this defense. Scotty, can't believe I'm about to say this, but give me the Pittsburgh Steelers. The oven's being preheated right now, man. They're almost in the oven, but they're not there yet.
Give me Minshew mania, man.
All right.
Whenever you count him out, whenever his back's against the wall, the mania comes out. The only reason I'm going out here on a limb and picking the Indianapolis Colts, one, obviously the Pittsburgh offensive situation
is anemic.
Like beyond disgusting. And I have seen the Colts come out and put 38 on the Browns. So there is potential there. There's a chance, right? No, this one's going to be ugly. I will say that. I do think that Minshew and the Colts offense can just make a few more plays than what the Steelers can, but it'll be interesting to see if Pittsburgh can get anything going against that Indianapolis defense that did just give up 34 to Jake Browning. So if Jake Browning can do it, you would hope that Mitchell Trubisky can, right? But no, I don't know. I guess it's like a hunch. Maybe it's because they're at home. I kind of lean towards Indianapolis, but neither of these teams belong in the playoffs, if I'm being completely honest.
Agree with you on that one, man. Last game, Saturday night, Broncos at Detroit. This one's difficult for me.
It is.
It seems like a bounce back spot for Detroit.
It's a bounce back spot, or it's like a fraud major alert spot. Like, yeah, I don't know. Man. Like, it wouldn't be the worst loss in the world to the Broncos, but you are in a spot where you really, it's not that you can't afford one, but like you don't want to put together losses like this in a row, right? And you lost the one that you were supposed to win, so now you can't afford to lose this one, right? Right. And that's kind of where I'm at with the Lions. But
give me Broncos country, bro.
Broncos have been playing better, man. Russell
Broncos
Wilson
country.
Better.
Let's ride. I'm taking the Broncos in this one, man. I don't trust Jared Goff against strong defenses. I don't. I think they're going to turn them over. And even though that Russell Wilson-led offense can be anemic as well at times, Javonte Williams just scored a rushing touchdown last week for the first time all year. That Detroit defense is like Swiss cheese, man. And I think that Russ will be able to move the ball on them. I'm not saying it's going to be like a 31-28 win, but I think that the Broncos find a way to get the job done.
Yeah, man, I think you kind of talked me into it. I was thinking the Lions, but definitely with a question mark there. And I think I'm going to go with the Broncos, man. I do. Even on the road, we've seen that home field advantage really doesn't mean anything for the Lions. They lost on Thanksgiving to the goddamn Green Bay Packers. Nonetheless, you look at the Broncos, man. They've won 6 out of their last 7, with the only loss coming against the Texans. On the road, to be fair, but nonetheless, against this Lions team, I like the way that defense matches up as well. And the Lions have just looked a little soft, man. They've looked a little soft. They give up points. And when you give up points, you're going against Russell Wilson, a team and offense that has been performing a lot better. They've had signature, wins over the Browns, Chargers last week. They've beaten the Bills. They've beaten the Vikings. They've beaten the Chiefs recently. They've beaten the Packers as well. So all of these signs for me point towards the Broncos in this matchup to really and fully expose the Lions for what they are. But this is a big spot for Detroit. I will say Detroit win this at home against the Broncos, and that's a pretty good win for them, honestly, for my meter of being impressed, I guess. But that would be an impressive win with your backs against the wall. You're kind of spiraling right now. Lost 2 out of your last 3. You're at home. You should win this game. It would be a good win, though, nonetheless, I would say.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, man.
Broncos.
Agree with you. So we are going 3 out of 4 together over this Thursday night and Saturday stretch.
And then the other game, we don't really give a fuck.
No, cannot give 2 shits about it. But anyway, With that said, guys, that is going to wrap up this Thursday edition of NFL Turf Talk right here on DSM Media's Turf Talk YouTube channel. If you guys want all of your NFL content, make sure to smash that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. It's the best spot to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up here with us, more so than Facebook, Twitch, TikTok, Twitter. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you want all your NBA content, make sure to subscribe to the Scotty Talks NBA channel. And obviously, for all you Philly fans out there, Eagles, Sixers, Phillies, and more, we're talking about on the pregame shows as well as the Faithful Fanatic show over on the DSM Philadelphia YouTube channel. Make sure to smash that subscribe button. For myself, for Scotty, for DSM,